Last night, at around 1:30 in the morning, I laid in my bed and dusted off an old book I hadn't opened in months. The book's cover was not noteworthy. It was completely blank, with its only significant characteristics being its light brown color and coarse texture. But it was a significant book because it was my journal. I have not journaled in months. This once daily habit that helped me set and define my goals, refine my self-awareness, and act as a history book for my life's events had been surrendered by my lack of necessity to do so anymore. For the most part, my life has been pretty great. I've stopped worrying about my finances almost completely. I try to have a good balance between working and getting into other activities, and my energy and health have been close to its all-time high. But something about a combination of events that happened recently just felt like I needed to pull out my journal once more. So I started putting my pencil to the paper. I had no specific goal in mind, I just thought that maybe I could make sense of what was going on within me if the words that were swarming around in my head were materialized into the physical. I wrote about what my life had looked like recently, and the things that had grown since I had last written in my journal. I wrote about some concerns I've had in regards to my lack of focus, and how much I've scaled back my work output from the days when I was putting out 2 videos a week. And that made me extremely grateful for how far I've come and how much support I've gotten over these past couple years. I waited for the moment when it just felt right to end my writing session, and it came after about a page and a half. And after that, I closed my eyes and went to bed very peacefully. But when I woke up, that feeling was still kinda there. In fact, it was still there as I was writing the script to this video. I like to call these periods of extended, strange feelings muted agony. You're not exactly unhappy, but you're not happy either. You're pretty comfortable, but there's a lingering discomfort in the comfortableness. You try to do the things you've always done that used to bring you a lot of joy and growth, but they no longer produce those feelings at the desired intensity. So you think to yourself, okay, maybe I just need a change of pace, a change of scenery or activity. After all, a lot of dopamine is released when we pursue novel things. But even that doesn't really work. You then start to realize, man, I'm really here doing this thing. And by this thing, I mean existing. And it weighs on you really heavily that this is it, and it's all happening right now. If you have dreams and aspirations, it's all on you to achieve them. Your whole life and what comes out of it is your entire responsibility. And it's not that you can't do it, because anyone can. But the more dominant force that suppresses your actions is, well, why should I do it anyway? What's really gonna come out of achieving these things? And will this truly be what I want when it's all said and done? This is gonna happen no matter where you are in your life, and it's gonna happen again and again. But if you do not have a way to address this problem when it intrudes the momentum you once had, then its temporary stay might turn into a permanent visit. I didn't even really plan to make this video until a couple days ago when I started writing the script, but for some reason, it just feels right to make, and I feel like a lot of you guys are going through something similar. But one thing I am glad that I don't have to worry about anymore is having a good skincare routine thanks to Tiege Hanley. As a young guy, skincare just doesn't really come up on your list of priorities, but it is such an important thing for longevity, not aging quickly, and also just to feel more confident. Tiege Hanley provides you with all the products you need if you want to easily wash or moisturize your face without a ton of different steps. I recommend starting with their level 1 system, which comes with a daily face wash, an exfoliating scrub, an AM moisturizer with SPF 20, and a PM moisturizer. Whether I'm in the shower or by the sink, I use the face wash almost every day, and the AM moisturizer that's always going on every day before I go outside. If you're gonna be spending extended periods of time in the sun, then you need to put SPF on your skin. I don't know if you guys have seen these pictures of people who have only use sunscreen on certain parts of their body, but you can tell that the parts of their body that they didn't use sunscreen on aged much quicker. They have over 5,000 5-star reviews, and as a Tiege Hanley member, you get tons of benefits, including at least 20% off the retail price, access to exclusive monthly deals, and free US shipping. And because Tiege Hanley is sponsoring today's video, you know you guys are getting that juicy discount. You just click the first link in the description and you will get 30% off your first box, plus a free gift. Go take advantage of that offer and start taking care of your skin. So now let's evaluate what's going on here. The yearning to do something that inspires you, that breeds further inspiration, has been sapped away, and it happened out of nowhere. Normally, you can have at least a somewhat decent idea as to why you're unhappy or indifferent. Maybe you get fired from your job, or your crush rejects you, or you decide to stare at your computer screen for 10 hours without going outside. The why there is clearly defined, and because it is clearly defined, there's usually an easily definable solution. Damn, I really shouldn't have sat for so long today. Tomorrow I'll make sure to spend at least an hour walking. See? Simple problem, simple fix. But there's nothing really practical to apply when you have this obscure sense of heaviness that randomly invades your your existence. And that's the first thing to acknowledge. Much of your stress towards your indifference could be due to the confusion around the heaviness, and not the heaviness itself. If that's the case, I would ask yourself this: why do you need to understand it? What would happen if you never did? Could you live without finding the logical conclusion behind your emptiness? If, after trying very hard to find some semblance of meaning behind your inexplicable indifference, you come up short, then maybe just one more journal entry or YouTube video isn't the answer here. Many times, we deem it necessary to extract some type of reason out of what we're going through. And I'm not saying that isn't the right approach, because when we can understand the why, it can become easier to handle. But maybe for this specific problem that we're trying to deal with, not trying to reason with it or find an excuse for its presence is the very thing that you need to do in order for it to go away. It's really the attitude of, oh yeah, this again, let's just rock with it till it subsides. If you haven't given that a try yet, go for it. Let go of all the resistance you have towards its visit and don't search for a solution. And in doing so, you'll probably find yourself within a paradox. Not trying to find an answer will become the answer itself. Now you've let a week go by, and those feelings of things not connecting or making sense the way you feel they should start to dissipate because you didn't identify with the muted agony. You instead saw it as a guest, as something outside of you that has its own agenda. And part of that agenda was just to take a little peek into your reality, influence it a little bit, and then walk away. And because you didn't try to change its schedule, it does in fact walk away, and your desire for positive action returns. I'd say for around 6 out of 10, maybe 7 out of 10 cases, the person that applies this philosophy will eventually return to who they were before this onset of feelings occurred. But we still need to address that 3 or 4 out of 10. What if your muted agony unlocks your door from the outside, and you don't do anything about it because you're under the assumption that it will eventually leave, but it ends up surrounding you, tying you up, and locking you in your room while it raids your headspace? I know some of y'all weirdos would wish someone would do that to you, but just chill out for a second. Listen to the video. Something has got to change. Listen to me, something has got to change. This nihilistic perspective on reality that has taken you over, that is only further reinforced by the difficulty of life's challenges, is making you want to escape from it all. And the only way your brain logically concluded you can do that is if you turn off all of your emotions completely. You must begin to care. Around 3 years ago, I made a video about why you care so much and how to stop caring. And my main argument within that video is that eventually everything's gonna wither away one day and the universe will blow itself up and your name will be forgotten forever. So why should you care? After all, everything you do and care about will be so insignificant in the grand scheme of things. But the thing that I missed the mark with on that video is the nuance of that statement. Yes, you should overpower your biological need to care about what others think when they are insulting you or when you're extremely stressed over some life events, but when it comes to getting out of muted agony, trying to apply these rules is only going to drive you further down that hole. Your life is absolutely significant. You should care about the decisions you make and your actions, because each one will send a ripple through the time that all of us spend here in this universe. No matter what you have accomplished so far, each of our lives are equally meaningful, and I will prove it to you. Technology and science has done this really strange thing where it's simultaneously made us realize how small we are and how much we don't know, but has also given us the tools we need to realize just how remarkably significant our biological hardware and software is. At 30 years old, Louis Le Bourgnet lost his ability to speak, or speak in any sort of matter that made sense. The only syllable that he could get to come out of his mouth was tan. Imagine not being able to say anything but tan. After battling with epilepsy for the greater portion of his life, he eventually died at age 51 in 1861. But his death was certainly not in vain. Interested to evaluate what was going on with his brain, a man named Pierre Broca performed a biopsy of it, which essentially just means they took a good long look at the inner workings of his brain. And he found that Louis had a lesion in the frontal part of his brain, and specifically the upper left-hand part of it. Not too long after, Broca was able to perform another biopsy on a man who reported to have similar issues producing speech. And just like last time, he found a lesion in the same area as Louis's brain. This area of the brain eventually came to be known as Broca's area, and it was later concluded that speech production was localized in the brain. These people could still comprehend all the words they were hearing, and it didn't affect their intelligence, but because that part of their brain had damage, it could not connect the word they were thinking of with the other parts of the body required to produce the meaningful sounds that we call words. The reason I am explaining this to you is to make you realize that certain parts of your brain and body are essentially hallucinating what they deem to be significant to your reality. Take, for example, the experience of color. Let's say this green bamboo plant that is behind me right here. The plant really does seem to be green. Its greenness seems as real as its roundness and its solidity. Yet we have known since Isaac Newton that colors do not exist out there in the world. Instead, they are cooked up by the brain from mixtures of different wavelengths of colorless electromagnetic radiation. Colors are just a clever trick that evolution has hit on to help the brain keep track of surfaces under changing lighting conditions. And we humans can sense only a tiny slice of the full electromagnetic spectrum, nestled between the lows of the infrared and the highs of ultraviolet. Every color we perceive, every part of the totality of each of our visual worlds, comes from this thin slice of reality. Meaning that what comprises your organism is only the most significant of senses from the potentially millions of senses that actually exist in our objective reality. When you start to think of yourself and the world in which you inhabit in this way, then everything starts to feel like it has meaning. Our human body could have chose to allow us to perceive X-rays on the electromagnetic spectrum, but it knew that it wouldn't have been that useful for our survival. So our brain formed to say, screw that part of reality, it doesn't mean much in the grand scheme of things. And instead of showing us all the light, all the color, all the sounds, all the textures, and all the feelings, our brain has carefully crafted our realities to produce a sort of reality that allows our species to keep moving onward. Well, at least sometimes. But you see, most of us just don't think like that. We think, oh, I'm just this simple, old, incompetent human, and I can't do anything great, and even if I did do something great, no one acknowledges it. It doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. But the very fact that those things are even possible is of outrageous significance, because you were capable of making your brain commit to this thing, perceive it, and do things with this reality to bring about change. If your brain did not think it was significant, just like how the brain was convinced speech production wasn't significant for the people with brain damage to that area, then it wouldn't exist in your reality. And yet, here you are, experiencing yourself as an entity of reality while simultaneously being the one creating it. You are doing everything that you are seeing, hearing, smelling, thinking, and feeling right out in front of you. But oh, just because every other human is capable of doing that, it doesn't really mean much? That is completely ludicrous. If us humans are living on this plane of reality, which shares similar attributes to every other human that lives here, then every action, thought, and decision we make will influence the rest of everyone else who occupies this reality. Do you understand what I'm saying? Everything you do or think about or act upon will reverberate throughout the entirety of existence. If what you did or sensed really meant nothing, then your brain would have judged it to not be worth existing in this plane of reality in the first place. And even if you are similar to those people who have damaged certain areas of their brain or body and they are impaired in some way, you are still capable of producing something. You are still here living, and that in and of itself is of utmost significance to the earth. The very fact that enough elements formed together made you shoot out of your mother's private parts and gave you the tools with which to exist means you have meaning and significance, even if you don't do what most people in our society deems to be significant. Learning this about our brains doesn't just show us how powerful simply just existing really is. It also shows us how capable we are of shifting our realities and the way in which we handle our muted agony. If we can iterate through an experience, thought, or action enough times, that will eventually start to form new neural pathways in our brain so that it becomes easier to do said thing. And if we apply this to our muted agony, then we can take what we learned here, constantly remind ourselves of the significance of our existence, and use that to motivate us to take more positive action on the things that make us feel the most alive, so we feel the muted agony less. It's definitely not the easiest thing to consciously remind yourself of the power of your production of reality, so that is why you must frequently identify the things in your life that make you connect with those senses. For me, sometimes that's the things that get my blood pumping, like soccer or lifting weights. Other times, I can remind myself of this fact by taking some time to do absolutely nothing but marvel at my ability to produce this sort of reality. But you need to figure out what that is for yourself, and do it again and again and again until it becomes almost entirely impossible to feel anything other than awe. And you should feel that way, because a greater sense of understanding comes with a greater sense of wonder. No matter what you do, if you keep this undeniable fact in the back of your mind, then nothing will ever feel anything other than completely and totally meaningful. After all, if it wasn't, then whatever it is wouldn't even exist. Thank you very much to all the patrons on Patreon. If you don't know what this is, it's a platform separate from YouTube. I put out exclusive content on there. If you want to check that out, the link is in the description. I like to make these videos where I offer some sort of mind-altering technique, change your perception a little bit. If you want another video like that, check out this one. I'm sure that you'll enjoy it a lot, and thank you for watching till the end. Love you guys. Peace.